All right, it is Friday morning, October 17th. This is Jennifer Paustenbaugh, and I am here with Ed Dobson. We are doing an interview for the O State Stories Oral History Project at Oklahoma State University. And Ed is a former Pistol Pete, and he is back here for a reunion this weekend of all of the Pistol Petes. And so thank you so much for your willingness to participate in this interview, and welcome back to campus. I don't know, when was the last time you were here?
2 years ago for the same football game, homecoming.
Okay.
We lost to Texas A&M when we had a kick blocked.
Oh, that's right. That was a terrible
Extra point
game.
blocked.
Well, we're hoping the outcome's going to be a lot better tomorrow. But that's right. You never know.
From what happened to BYU yesterday, we better be ready for upsets.
Yes, and Baylor has a pretty good quarterback.
Yeah, so they showed it against Iowa State last week.
Yeah, he's pretty exciting. So at least we have that little confidence builder of having gone against a really good quarterback and come out on top last weekend.
Oh yeah,
so, yeah.
On national TV in their house.
That's right. That's right. That was really great. Well, can you remember the first time you saw the Pistol Pete mascot?
Well, it would have been first football game probably of the 1961 football season. It was my freshman year. I can't remember who we played first that year, but all of a sudden I was involved with the homecoming events later on, and got to see who was how the fellas were handling this mascot role, and got interested in it. And during the course of the year, our residential assistant there at East Bennett Hall on the 4th floor, Randall Acton, started talking to me about how they were going to be having interviews for Pistol Pete later on in the spring, and that if I was really interested, I ought to try out, because the fellow that was doing it that year was not going to be doing it again. And in those days, they had never had anybody do it twice. That was early. I mean, Pistol Pete, as a mascot, was only a few years old in 1961. I guess 58 was the first year we had anybody actually represent themselves as Frank Eaton. And then the head came along right after that.
So at that point, was there just one Pistol Pete? They didn't select two Petes?
Right.
Okay.
I don't know when they actually began selecting two fellas to do it, but for quite a while, it would just take one.
So it must have been a big job then to take that on.
Actually, not near as much as today, because not very many events invited the Pistol Pete mascot in. I mean, I was the first one to take Pete to wrestling matches.
Okay.
I think the guy before me actually did basketball games, but I can't swear to that. I might have been the first to do basketball too, and I was definitely the first to do baseball. And there was a little ridicule going on. You know, what do you think you're doing, showing up in that big head at some of these events? You know, it was I was way ahead of my time for that.
Not just here, but maybe in intercollegiate athletics altogether.
Nobody went from collegiate mascot into the professional ranks in those days.
Okay. So what was your first impression of the Pistol Pete mascot when you saw him?
Wow, that's cool.
So can you, I guess moving back before your time as Pistol Pete, can you tell us a little bit about yourself before you came to OSU and what it was that brought you here to school?
Well, to make long story short, between junior and senior year in high school, I went down to Bo Belcher's Chandler baseball camp, Chandler, Oklahoma, and played there for a couple of weeks that summer. And I just fell in love with Oklahoma at that point. I thought, I've got to get back out here. And so the best way to do that would be to go to college. So I started looking into OU and OSU. And the head of the radio TV department at that time was a fellow by the name of Bob Lacey. And he kind of used a little reverse psychology on me. He interviewed me for whether or not I should come down to enroll in the radio TV department, because that's what I was looking into. And when we got all done, he said, you ought to go to OU. You're from New York. You wouldn't like it out here in this western country. You need to be among them city slickers. So why don't you just go down to Norman? And I said, oh yeah? I'll show you. So I showed up out here, and the first thing I did on KVRO my fall semester freshman year, they put me on as a newscaster for Ed Turner, who was a senior about to graduate with a commission in the Air Force from his ROTC. And he was getting his degree in radio TV, and his program was the Southern Indoctrination Show. And here he had this Yankee newscaster. So one of the things he set out to do was to convert the Yankee into an Okie, at least voice-wise. And I played along with it, and we had a good time with it. And by the end of that semester, I sounded like I do now.
So he got rid of that Yankee accent, huh?
Sure did.
So what part of New York are you from originally?
Long Island.
Oh, okay. Well, he really did a convincing job.
Yeah, that's what they said, too.
That's pretty funny. So it was the experience in the baseball camp and the interview that really got you to come to Stillwater.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, that was quite a distance away to go to school.
Yeah, I had this idea that Oklahoma was the place I wanted to go, so going to college out here was the best way to get here.
Okay. So, can you tell us a little bit about your OSU experience apart from your Pistol Pete activities? What other things you were involved with?
No, can't talk about any of that. Oh, let's see, what else? One of the things that happened will be, I don't know how we'll be on sequential stuff here, but around the time I got here, they were going to build some new dormitories. And they started out, they're called Dorm A and Dorm B. And I moved into Dorm B from East Bennett Hall. And then we started in trying to figure out how we're going to name these dorms. And we had a little council there in the dorm, and some of the fellows decided that we ought to reach back into the Native American connection in our history. So who could we name this dorm after? And we settled on Quanah Parker. And there was a lot of argument about whether or not we should go that way, not just Parker himself, but with a Native American choosing that person's name. And after it was all said and done, that's the way we went.
Okay. Well, I didn't know that was the Parker in Parker Hall.
I don't think much is said about it these days, where that comes from. But that's true probably of most of the dorm names. If you ask some of the students living in one of the dorms now, where did that name come from, they probably have to say, I'll look it up, get back to you.
Right. If they would even do that. So you mentioned that you had seen Pistol Pete first at football games, and that you thought that he was pretty cool. And
yeah. Probably saw him first at the pep rally before the first game.
Okay.
And took it from there.
So tell me what the tryout process was like at that point. How many people tried out, and what did you have to do?
As I remember, Randall Acton might have been the president of the Student Senate at that time. I mentioned him earlier.
Right, you said he was your resident.
He was our RA.
Uh-huh.
And the tryout was really an interview process with the Student Senate. I don't think that they actually asked us to wear the head and go out and try to carry it around and perform anything. The Pete position was not really considered part of the cheer squad, pep squad, or any of that. It was somebody who was going to be, at that point, King Casey was the director of student activities, and he was determined that the person under that hat would be totally anonymous. nobody would know who it was. It would not be in the Old Collie. It would not be anywhere who got chosen to be Pistol Pete. It's a very secret process. And Pete would just be out there as the mascot, and that'd be it. Nobody would know who was under there. I'll get to some little variation on that later, but so when I went into this process, that was the presumption, and they made a big point of it. Now, how are you going to be able to handle this? Are you going to be able to be totally anonymous, not tell anybody on campus that you're Pistol Pete? Think you can do that? So I said, yeah, I think I could. And I don't know if anybody else actually got that far in the interview, because I eventually got the job, and I didn't think I was going to get it.
And so were you able to be anonymous? I mean, that sounds like a pretty difficult challenge, even if you're very determined that you're going to be.
Actually, it was easy on campus, because I would always come out of a closed room and go back into a closed room. And I don't remember if there was a back door or whatever, how I got out of there without anybody putting it together that, oh yeah, you must be Pete. But I'm sure a lot of people knew who was Pete, but the idea was not to make a big thing out of it. Almost anybody who found out was sort of told, don't spread it around. And that went on very well here on campus. But then later in the football season, 1962, we played Army, and Pete got to go. Being from Long Island, Pete got to stop off at my house.
Uh-huh.
And so the neighborhood figured out, obviously, if somebody's carrying around that head, it must be the guy. But that didn't get in any publicity back here. Then at the game, everything was fine until the end of the game. It was a great game. Army had as I remember, they had a winning streak going at Mikey Stadium. They hadn't lost for a while. We came in there as a big underdog and beat them, 12-7. And after the game, my folks were up in the stands, and we got crosswise on some communications about how we were going to reconnect later. And so after about half hour after the game was over, I wound up taking the hat off so that I could communicate with them. And most everybody was gone. The stands were pretty empty, but there were a bunch of kids hanging around who were just fascinated with the mascot, Pistol Pete. So then as soon as the hat came off, then I got engaged in conversation and had to tell them all about it. And there was a newspaper there. And so here came all the pictures of Pistol Pete in the local paper the next day. Now that didn't have any effect back here in Stillwater, but King Casey, the director of student activities, was just horrified that had happened. And so he called me in on the carpet when we got back, and if I ever let that happen again, he was going to see to it that I got removed from the position and all that. And we didn't have any problems with it after that. It was just that isolated event. But then I didn't try out for the position my junior year because I wanted to pursue sportscasting.
Okay, so you did this as a sophomore?
I did as a sophomore.
Okay.
And
which today would be really unusual.
It would.
Yeah.
And it was also unusual to have somebody from Long Island be Pistol Pete. But I had gone through the Southern Indoctrination show with Ed Turner, and so that kind of cut the ice.
So did you learn how to swagger too as part of that whole process, or was Pete not so much a swaggerer at that point?
Oh, sure. We did a lot of swaggering. In fact, under that hat, I don't remember what it weighed total, it must have been about 45 pounds. It's hard not to swagger.
Yeah.
Just moving around, you're going to do a little of that.
Okay. So you served as Pete during the 1962-63 school year?
Right.
Then?
And then in 63-64, I was following the team around calling play-by-play for KVRO, and went down to Texas and Austin and called the game on a telephone line from there. We were we weren't really trying to compete with KSPI and Bill Platt, but we were trying to get our own students experience with the play-by-play. And in those days, KVRO was a 10-watt local station. Uh-huh. But we had established an antenna by running wires through the steam tunnels all over campus. And so putting a 10-watt signal through all that wire spread all over the campus gave us an incredible reach. And people were picking us up in Perry and all on their radios going down toward Oklahoma City. And all of a sudden we got in trouble with the Federal Communications Commission because a 10-watt local student station wasn't supposed to have that kind of reach. But we dealt with that and had a pretty good year. With I was the first, as far as I know, the first person to actually broadcast play-by-play wrestling on the radio. I don't think KSPI had done it yet in 1963, 64.
Okay.
But I took the microphone down to the old Gallagher Hall and set it up there in front of the mat and broadcast the wrestling matches on KVRO.
So was wrestling a sport that you were pretty familiar with before you came here? Or?
I hadn't wrestled, but my high school, Wellington C. Mepham High School, I wrote down in the form. Actually, I just put W.C. Mepham. But that school had a coach by the name of Sprig Gardner, who is in the Wrestling Hall of Fame over here. He built quite a program in that high school. And the school opened around 1938. My father and mother were in the first graduating class of Wellington C. Mepham High School. My dad didn't wrestle, he was in the band. But he had a lot of friends that did, and that program over the years really made a name for itself. And so I had friends that wrestled and went to all the wrestling matches at Mepham, and so I was quite interested in the sport. I hadn't known much about Oklahoma State, but when I got here and found out that this is a national power, I was just excited about who can I get from Mepham to come here. That never did play out, but we had a lot of fun thinking about it.
So had you heard play-by-play of wrestling matches before you did set out to do it yourself?
No.
Okay. I'd never heard it until I came here. And, you know, not having seen a wrestling match before, but having heard it on the radio, you know, I knew all this terminology, but I had no idea what any of it actually looked like.
It's kind of like listening to hockey on the radio.
Yeah.
You don't really know what's going on until you go to a game.
Yeah, that is certainly true. So when you were Pete, did you receive any compensation for being Pete?
Oh, no.
No. Okay.
No. My first year. And then after my junior year, I heard, I can't remember who told me, whether it came from Randall Acton, who was a graduate by then and got back to me and said, you know, you ought to think about trying out again because they're having trouble. They had a guy who was going to be Pete in 63, 64, and for whatever reason that didn't work out. And then they got Gene Doris to fill in the rest of it, and his father, I think his name was Troy Doris, was a professor in the biology department here. And so but then he didn't want to do it, or he was leaving the next year, and for whatever reason it wasn't working out, and they were not happy with the prospects that they had apply for it in the spring of 64. And so I got this phone call and said, you know, if you can see your way clear to try that again, why don't you go do it? And I figured, well, I've got my year of sportscasting in, let me go try that and see if they really need another Pete, I'll do it. So I wound up with it again.
Okay. Well,
And I was the first person to have done it twice.
Well, and to have that space in between, I mean, that year where you didn't do it, that's kind of interesting too. So you mentioned one of the don'ts of being a Pistol Pete was don't reveal your identity under any circumstances. What were there other do's and don'ts?
That was the big one.
Uh-huh.
The other one was don't shoot anybody.
Okay.
Even though you got blanks, you can't point that gun at anybody.
Okay.
I don't care who it is, from Norman or from Lawrence or Manhattan, wherever they're from, you can't point that gun at them. But we did have some fun with that. There was a game here. OU came to town, and they had an Indian mascot in those days. I don't know if they still run an Indian around on the field or not. I don't
No,
think they
they have
do.
that, the Sooner Schooner.
They have that.
Yeah.
Well, they had something like that then. That I don't think they took it on the road, but they had something like that in Norman. But they had, I think the fellow, I don't know if I'm remembering things mixed up or what, but I would say that there was a fellow named Kurt Kickingbird who was the Sooner mascot in the Indian costume. And when they were here, we set something up at halftime where he got a call to go to the field house to take a phone call at halftime. And then we ran out our own person dressed up like him. And he went around like he was going to do some damage on Pete, and I shot him. And he lay there on the field for quite a while, and you could hear a pin drop on the OU side of that stadium.
I thought you'd really taken care of him. So, as far as I've ever heard, Pete has never talked. So was that part of the whole, I mean, was that part of the concealing the identity?
Sure.
Okay. I didn't know if there was anything else behind that.
I couldn't say for right now.
Okay.
But back then, yeah, Pete wasn't to try to talk to anybody.
So as far as behavior expectations, were there different, I realize that there were certain behavior expectations while you were portraying the mascot, but as far as other behavior expectations when you weren't appearing somewhere as the mascot, were those different for the people that were Pete?
Well, I don't know if it was part of the idea of being anonymous, but they really didn't care about things we did as long as we stayed sober.
Sort of kept your nose clean.
Yeah. Don't get totally out of line, even though nobody knows who you are. And of course you needed to keep your academics up. And the second time I did it, though, the rules got a little looser. And I think there was the point where it changed, where all of a sudden the King Casey's rule of anonymity went by the boards. We had a game where one of the alumni decided that Pete needed a new pair of boots, and he was donating them to me, not to the school. These are boots that I would take with me when I graduated, and he wanted them presented at halftime, and he wanted me to put them on at halftime, and I had to take the hat off to do it. So that all happened at halftime. The head came off. I was on the ground pulling the boots on. There's pictures in the Daily Oklahoman and the Tulsa World. Ed Dobson gets boots from so-and-so. And that was sort of the end of the anonymity.
Okay. So do you still have those boots?
Wore them totally out.
Okay. They're not in the storage locker in Montana?
No, unfortunately. If I had known when I was disposing of those boots that they might be of interest to anybody, I'd still have them. But in those days, probably by 1980, I had totally worn those things into a nub. And anybody who knew me said, "Why don't you toss them?" And I couldn't tell a lot of people the history of it and make any sense out of it, so they eventually got tossed.
So was there anything special about the way they looked?
They were orange.
Orange, okay.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Well, I assume so, but you know, I just wanted clarification.
Oh, you bet.
that.
I'm sorry I didn't bring that right
No,
up.
that's fine. So you mentioned that the original Pete or the first like 2 or 3 years of the Pistol Pete mascot, he appeared at football games only, and possibly basketball. But that wrestling and baseball were new sports that you introduced Pete at.
As far as I know. Now, Bill Smith may want to say something about that.
Okay.
And if he's being interviewed,
Tomorrow.
good. Be sure to ask him where he went,
Okay.
what he did as far as the events, the games that he went to, and if he went on the road. Because I had the impression that me taking Pete to Army might have been the first serious road trip.
Okay. So did you appear at anything other than athletic
Pep rallies.
Pep rallies?
Yeah. In the walk around and there were things that we were trying out. Where would Pete show up? And once I started saying, you know, Pete's going to go to more athletic events, then they started thinking, well, and at the same time they were thinking about where can Pete go in that year, 62, 63, they were still constrained by the idea that we can't blow the cover. So a lot of things that Pete might have gone to didn't happen because it was too risky.
Okay.
And then after the dam broke in the football season of '64, it was a lot easier. Everybody knew then, and then everywhere I went, of course, around campus, I'd get picked on, and there was a lot of ways to take the name Pistol Pete and turn it into an epithet and all.
Uh-huh.
And I got to hear all of them, not from other schools, but just people around campus who wanted to pick on the guy that wore the hat. So that was strange, but
yeah, I'd say almost unexpected.
It was.
At least in my mind.
It was at the time.
Yeah. So the next question I had for you, which you have sort of in part answered by what you just said, was your Pistol Pete experience anything like you thought it would be? I guess maybe more so going to your first year that you did it, because obviously the second time you did it, you sort of had a set of expectations of what it was going to be like. But
it was, yeah. And I can't remember right now whether I was sitting there at the first interview thinking, wow, Pete's going to Army. I want to be that guy. I'm going to get to go home that weekend if I go. It probably was going through my mind, but I just can't remember right now. So those, the expectations were that this is going to be great, traveling with the team, traveling with the pep squad, whoever it was. I remember going down the road to Kansas in the back seat of a Volkswagen with a couple of cheerleaders in the front and another cheerleader sitting in the back with me. And there was, I can't remember all the cheerleaders' names right now, but it seems like one of them's name was Charlie, and he was driving. And I don't think we ever made it past a rest stop. One of us had to rest every time. We never had to go all at once, but one of us would have to go in every time we got to a town.
so was this a Volkswagen bug?
Yeah.
So what did you do with the head?
Oh, the hat got to go on the bus with the team.
Oh, okay. Right. So what was a typical week like for you as a Pete?
Typical week.
I mean, was it pretty much like any student week, and then on Saturday you had a totally different experience than everyone else did, pretty much, or?
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah. Nobody else had 40 pounds of cover. But one of the things that happened, I can't remember if I started doing this at the end of the first football season in '63, or if it was, and rather in '62, or if I didn't start this until '64, but I would run out ahead of the team, and I would run straight at the team bench. And you can see straight ahead pretty good through the head, but then you lose vision as you get closer to something, if it's low. And so I would have to guess at my footsteps, and I would run straight at the team bench and jump up on it and jump over it. And I did that every home game.
You never missed?
Never missed. And I don't have to worry about jinxing myself now because I ain't doing it again. But I had one advantage, was that the hat did not sit flush up against my chest, so I had this little window of vision where I could see straight down. And so when I got to the bench, I knew what I was stepping on right at the last second, and I could get up over it. But a lot of people in the stands were watching for that, just expecting that Pete was going to run head over heels.
Wipe out.
Wipe out, yeah.
Well, so how did you build yourself up to be able to run with a 45-pound head on your shoulders?
Well,
anything special?
No, it was just a matter of being halfway coordinated, I guess.
Okay. Well, not everybody has that going for them, so... what was it like to step out on the field for the first time as Pete?
It's a long time ago. I'm not sure I remember, other than I was probably numb to the experience because it was just all happening, and I was in there, and everybody else is out there. And it's a kind of a muffled situation too, so you don't get to hear a lot of things that are going on. If people want to talk to you, they've got to come up and just about holler into the eye socket.
Okay.
And because there's all this background noise at the stands, and that between the muffling of the hat and the background noise, it was really hard to hear what anybody was saying.
Okay. So now, Pistol Pete's movements are really sort of, I guess, choreographed by the person who does is in charge of the game day experience. And I'm assuming at that time that there wasn't all this organization about the game day experience like there is now.
There was none of that.
Okay. So you really were fairly autonomous as far as what you chose to do?
Oh, sure.
Okay.
If a couple of guys got together and said, hey, we're going to pull a fast one on the mascot from Norman, we didn't have to clear it with anybody. We just pulled it off.
So what you talked about the stunt where you sent a double out for the mascot. Were there any other sort of memorable stunts that you did as Pete?
No, not really. As far as skits in that sense, no. That was the only one that really sticks in my mind.
So is there anything in particular that you remember about Frank Eaton, upon whom this caricature was based?
I think he was dead when I got here in
Okay.
'61.
I think you're right,
but not by much.
No, I think he died in '59 or '58.
And that's sort of coincidental with the establishment of the mascot that we know today, because until Frank passed, he was here.
Right.
And so there was no need to portray him.
Mm-hmm.
And then the first guy that got the idea of doing it didn't wear a mask or anything. He just dressed up. And then the next year they said, well, let's do something with this.
Okay. So were there any of his personal characteristics that you tried to portray when you were Pete?
Tried to learn how to spin pistols.
Okay.
And I got halfway decent at it.
Okay. Yes, I wondered if that was something that was harder than it looks.
Well, it's a little bit harder under that head when you're starting out, because I hadn't done anything like that before. So trying to learn it, I had to spend a lot of time, just spinning pistols without the head on, to make sure I knew what I was doing, and getting them into the holster properly and not looking like an idiot.
See. Yeah. Uh-huh.
So when I took the position, when I got back on campus in the fall of '62, the pistols were issued to me. It's not like I had to go to a locker and check them out every Saturday. I kept them in my room.
Okay.
So I could get handy with them.
Okay. So how much did you practice to?
Well, as they used to say, Ed was eat up with it. He spun those guns in his room a lot. And my roommate at the time knew who Pistol Pete was. He wasn't supposed to tell anybody. He told a lot of people.
It's too good of a secret to try to keep, huh?
Yeah, there was too much fun to be had with that information.
So in your mind, how does the Pistol Pete mascot differ from other schools' mascots?
Firearms is the big thing.
Okay.
Yeah, and even now, there's more pressure building to remove the firearms, and the guys who play Pete are going to have to be real careful that they don't upset an apple cart. Nobody better go jumping up and down on somebody else's dugout anymore, because that'd be an excuse for taking a gun away.
Yeah. Well, and even now sometimes at games, you hear that gun go off and it's really alarming.
Yeah.
I think the way that we respond to that is a lot different than when the whole Pistol Pete mascot started out.
Oh yeah, and there was no shotgun when I had it. It was just a couple of pistols, 38s. Okay. And sure, you could hear them go off, but it wasn't a big noise.
Right.
The shotgun, that's
it's
loud.
It's a big noise, yeah, it really is. So did you ever participate in any kind of a mascot competition?
No.
Pete? No. Okay.
No.
So that must have come later on.
Yeah, they couldn't do that with Pete and retain the anonymity.
Okay. Do you have any strong opinion about whether Pete captures the spirit of this university better than other mascots capture the spirit of their university?
Oh, that's a tough one. I mean, if you asked anybody from another school that has a lot of school spirit, they would all stick up for their own mascots. At least most of them, as far as I could tell. But Pete does. He really can represent an individual spirit, and it's important to remember that other schools wanted that caricature.
Right.
When we went up to the University of Wyoming and they had the NCAA wrestling tournament up there, they had Pistol Pete's face all over everything with the UW under University of Wyoming. And when they saw me show up with that head, a lot of students at Wyoming accused us of stealing their mascot. And so then there was this big education program that went on about Frank Eaton and where the idea came from, and they didn't know any of that. And I think New Mexico State University down in Las Cruces has the same problem.
Right. Yeah, I remember when I came here that there was a big dispute over the Pistol Pete trademark, and even though we had been using it longer, the University of Wyoming had registered their use before ours, and so they have all these rules about how the mascots have to be identified, and even special rules if they're in competition with each other. It's kind of interesting how the law got involved in a mascot issue.
Oh yeah. It's a little bit like the precursor to the big argument today over whether or not there should actually be any Indian caricatures at all.
Right. Yeah. Was there any moment that stands out as a really embarrassing moment of being Pistol Pete that you want to share on a recording?
For me personally, or for the mascot?
Well, for you personally, but if there's other incidents that you can think of that...
Well, I felt horribly embarrassed at West Point when I had to take the hat off because I knew the repercussions were coming.
Mm-hmm.
But other than that, no.
Okay. So because you were able to step on that bench every time, we don't have to hear a story about how you missed once and had a big wipeout.
Yeah, there's no broken bones related to that effort.
Did you feel any special sense of responsibility representing the university as Pistol Pete?
Oh yeah, my regular hats were all too small. My head got so big. I was swelling up to try to fill Pete's hat.
Well, obviously at the time it meant a great deal to you to have portrayed Pistol Pete. I mean, in the retrospect, I guess, of 46 years, how do you rate that experience now? Is it something that's still important to you as part of who you were or are? Well,
finding out that it was significant enough to get back here to get interviewed, that sure put a new spin on it.
Okay. Well, it's been really interesting to us to talk to people and to sort of see the whole evolution of Pistol Pete. And I think one of the things that may surprise you is that I work in, or did serve as head of special collections and university archives for the OSU library. And about 2 months before homecoming, the Pistol Pete questions would start coming fast and furious, and so everyone that works in that department, sort of became a de facto Pistol Pete expert, and knows all the history with Frank Eaton and but some of these stories, the mascots themselves are sharing, or the people that were the mascot are really interesting to us. But we're trying to create a Pistol Pete website in part so that we don't have to answer the same questions, day after day after day.
Well, over the last few years, when I was here in 2004, and was in the homecoming parade on the float and all that. It was the first time I'd come back and done that.
Mm-hmm.
And at the same time, I was looking at the lists. I didn't realize that somebody had put the list together. I think Lance Millis was the first
Right.
one to go back
Yeah.
and build the list of Pistol Pete's. And he had a lot of blanks in there. He didn't have me at all. He had other people in my years, and a blank in somewhere where I was. And then there was Mitch Dobson, who was Pistol Pete a couple of years after me.
Okay. Any relation?
No.
No relation.
But Mitch knew I had done it, and he got the idea, well, if one Dobson can do it, then so he went ahead a couple of years later and got it. But I went in and started to do some research to try to straighten out the list. And so if you compare Lance Millis's list, which is now gone, I don't think it's up on any website anymore. It was under, if you go into OKState.com, or is it O-State? I can't remember now. I think it's OKState.
Uh-huh.
There used to be a list of Pete's under a category traditions.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure that even that category is there now. It's all under Pep Squad and all that. So they may have gotten down to one list. But if you could compare that list from, say, 1958 to 1970, Lance's old list with the list we have now, the differences are the things that I found out.
Mm-hmm.
I went ahead and researched all that and got those names straightened out.
Well, thank you for doing that, because I think that's an important part of properly documenting this tradition. And I know Lance did a lot of work when he he speared the nomination effort for Frank Eaton to be in the National Cowboy Hall of Fame.
Great.
Yeah, back in the early 90s. So I think that's when his interest in this became really pretty strong.
Yeah, he can't get enough credit for what he's done. It was a great job getting
Yeah.
that thing going.
Well, and your help obviously is much appreciated in getting the early years right. Is there a special bond between the former Petes?
I'm sure amongst a lot of them. I can't say that every former Pete is bonded to every other former Pete. I mean, there's some of them we haven't seen
Mm-hmm.
that didn't make it back like I started coming back. We don't know among quite a few of the early ones who's still alive and who isn't.
Right.
But with things like this happening, whatever bonds there are going to get stronger, for sure.
Is there a collective legacy of the Pistol Petes?
Material?
Well, I mean, I don't know. I mean, as a group, do you think that there's any legacy that you offer as former Pistol Petes? Maybe that question doesn't make a whole lot of sense because I didn't write the question.
Well, no, I'm thinking that legacy is going to be what we make of it.
Uh-huh.
And if you had asked that question in 1980, probably it would have just drawn some blank stares.
Right.
What kind of legacy could possibly, from those guys who were just mascot working under the hat. But then all of a sudden we had things come along where people could be considered for All-American mascot. And we had some All-Americans.
Okay.
And so there's a national recognition that's happening along with the local recognition. And that's building a great tradition, and really legacy is all about, or tradition is all about legacy. They're interchangeable at that stage for what we're doing.
Right.
But I was just thinking that where we finally laid anonymity to rest now and forever was probably in the '65 Redskin. I don't think anybody was identified as having served as Pistol Pete in the Redskin until '65. And there's a picture of me with a stupid sign that we had.
What was the stupid sign?
Well, you really have to get the context. We had this great basketball team with Gene Johnson and Larry Hawk and who was James King, and we lost Bob Swaffer because he stuck his arm down in in the washer dryer, in the washing machine when it was in the spin cycle, and he got his hands caught on some clothing and it just spun his arm off. And Lester Berryhill was, I think, studying pre-med, and he kind of knew what to do, and they packed his arm all up in ice and rushed him off and got his arm sewed back on, but that was the end of his basketball for Oklahoma State. And Bob has been asked a lot of times, well, don't you think you'd have won the Nationals if you'd have still been playing for them when they won the Big Eight, and then they went up to Wichita and should have gone on to the national title game? And Bob just says, they'd have won if they'd have played better. But yeah, losing Bob was a huge impact on that team, and I think they would have gone all the way if Bob had still been around. But where was I going with this?
With the sign.
Sign, yes, that was the year we had this sign, and there was a sense early on that this team could be great, and so they needed kind of a slogan. The fans wanted a slogan, and different things were happening. I said one time, hey, we don't mess around. And somebody said, why don't you make a sign out of that? I said, well, that's too clunky a sign. I mean, I'm going to carry something around with all those words. That's nuts. And I said, well, if you think about it, you could do something with that sign, make it counterpoint. You could have a messed up sign where all the messing up is left on the sign. And so this sign is in the yearbook, and it says, hey, we don't mess around, and the D is kind of squished right in there at the end, like if the sign was made without enough space.
Okay.
And so that was the counterpoint. We're leaving all our messing around on the sign, but a lot of people never got it.
Uh-huh.
Some of the players on the team didn't get it, and they were hollering, what the hell is that sign doing out here? But the sign made it all the way to the Big Eight championship.
Okay. Well, great. Now we have that context for that photo in the yearbook, too.
Yeah, and seeing this guy he was the one that was Pistol Pete, and he's in the yearbook. Oh, well, King Casey finally laid it to rest. We're not going to worry about anonymity anymore.
So are there people that, I mean, maybe this isn't something that comes up in casual conversation with your friends, but when people learn that you were the Pistol Pete or the university mascot, or are they surprised? Or
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah, especially if they see Pete out on the field and I say, I used to do that. What?
Okay. That's interesting. Are there any, I guess, life lessons that you learned from being Pete? Not that I want you to necessarily feel like you have to wax philosophical, but...
Well, a lot of people like to quote Satchel Paige as saying, don't look back because something might be gaining on you. And I didn't look back at Pistol Pete for a long time. And then all of a sudden I found out that all these guys who were doing Pete after me were organized enough where somebody was looking for me. So it ain't all bad what's gaining on you.
Sure. I guess that, maybe did that make you feel like it was a more important experience than maybe you had thought it was at the time?
Oh, yeah. Not that I thought that Pete, the mascot, was more or less any important, but my doing it seemed like it was a lot more important after I found out that Pistol Petes were supposed to come back to the homecoming parade and all ride on the float together. I didn't know that for a long time.
And I hear that they're the collective parade marshals tomorrow. So you'll be on the float again.
Not just on the float, but in the front.
In the front, that's right. It'll be big time.
Yeah.
Well, that's exciting. Reflecting back, I mean, would you do it again if you had the opportunity?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Probably try for all 3 years instead of going back on the sports beat.
So just sort of as a follow-up, did you, your career when you left here, were you involved in sports broadcasting and journalism, or?
I went from here to Ohio University to grad school.
Okay.
And no, not at all at that level. And I didn't finish my degree. I went in the Peace Corps from there.
Okay. Where did you serve?
India.
India.
And that was before the Peace Corps got kicked out of India, obviously.
Okay.
In 66 and 67. But I got real sick over there, didn't finish my 2 years, and when I came back, I was all excited about the social service aspects, and decided to try my my skills that I'd picked up in the Peace Corps in a situation here in this country where I might be able to make it work. And so I wound up as a Head Start teacher on the Seminole Reservation at Big Cypress, Florida, in the late 60s. And this was before there was any Alligator Alley, so this was pretty remote back in the Big Cypress Swamp in those days. And it's been that's sort of been my life ever since. I wound up going to law school and served 9 years in the Montana Water Court as a judge.
Okay.
They called us Water Master, but we had all the powers of the district court. And now I'm a lawyer for the Navajo Legal Services on the Navajo Reservation.
All right. And that explains your location in southeastern Utah then.
It does.
Okay. Excellent. Well, is there any question that you wish that I had asked you about your Pete experience or anything else that I didn't ask you?
I'll think of that as soon as I get 15 minutes down the road.
That's right.
So like I was saying before, I better reserve the right to revise and extend my remarks.
Well, and we will certainly allow you to do that. Thank you so much for being here today and agreeing to participate in the interview. I'm
Very proud to do it.
And it's a pleasure. Okay.
I should have let you run the camera just a little bit more with the hat.
Yeah, now I've got you with the hat. Okay.